To have all of you with us today to learn about this very important topic. This is critical to the work that we do, the missions of our organizations, but we know it can be a real challenge. So we're excited to have some wonderful leaders with us today who can share with us strategies that really work. Our agenda today is we'll be hearing some opening remarks from Ken Tota, the Deputy Director of the Office of Refugee Resettlement. In just a moment, Ken will share a little bit about the federal immigrant integration strategy. And we'll ask people to please mute themselves when they get on the line. We are hearing quite a bit of background noise, and WebEx, unfortunately, has some kind of glitch and is automatically muting you. So please mute yourself when you get on the line. After Ken, we'll be hearing from Jesse Molina, who will be giving us a great overview of refugee inclusion strategies. And we'll be hearing from Helen Ho about civic engagement and the refugee community. And then our last speaker, Ruth Lalama Chani, will, as a community leader, a refugee community leader herself, and she will be sharing her suggestions with the group. After we hear from all of our speakers, we'll have plenty of opportunity for a moderated discussion and would encourage you to send in your questions in the Q&A box that's here. And so with that, I'm going to say one more time, please, if you haven't yet muted yourself, please do. I'm going to sound like a broken record on that today, I'm afraid, but we are getting some feedback, so everyone needs to individually mute themselves. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ken Tota.
Thank you, Susan. Thanks so much for the introduction. Very excited about the opportunity to be part of this webinar today on fostering refugee leadership and engagement. This is such an important topic and so critical to the long-term success of the refugee resettlement program. Really great to see the strong interest in participation today. Would folks could mute their phone so that everyone could hear. I think this is a very exciting time for the refugee program, and I think there's some very exciting, certainly events that just wanted to take a minute to kind of share with you. And many of you may know certainly that we're very excited about the presidential memorandum for creating welcoming communities and fully integrating immigrants and refugees, which actually was released just at the end of 2014. This is really a historic moment. The memorandum lays out really for the first time within the federal government a way to really look at comprehensively looking at refugees and immigrant integration and acknowledging the role that both new Americans and receiving communities play in ensuring a coordinated response. Some of you may know that OR has been long engaged, certainly with within HHS and certainly with the White House and other agencies, and looking at ways that we could help work with partners and fostering support and stressing the importance of focusing on economic, civic, and linguistic integration of new Americans and the role of the receiving communities. We've long recognized the importance of welcoming refugees, and I've been really pleased that to have Welcoming America as our TA provider to really help frame the conversation and help local communities really foster support for welcoming refugees and immigrants. Last summer, ORR and Welcoming America actually co-facilitated a session on comprehensive approaches to creating welcoming communities at the White House. This was a conversation that brought together many agencies, local governments, and community organizations to really talk about the federal role and what could be done to foster integration and welcoming communities. From that summit, actually, Welcoming America distributed an online survey to solicit feedback on the ideas, and many of you probably have responded to that. And everyone really recognizing the need and the importance that refugee integration can have on communities. The release of the memo makes it clear that welcoming and integrated communities are a priority for the President and the administration. And my favorite lines from the memo is that our success as a nation of immigrants is rooted in our ongoing commitment to welcoming and integrating newcomers into the fabric of our country. It's very important that we as a federal government really develop a strategy that is innovative and comprehensive and looks at all the mechanisms to help support our nation's diverse people as they contribute to our society at the fullest potential. Actually calls for the creation of a coordinated strategy to better help integrate new Americans into communities and to support state and local efforts to do so. Through newly established White House Task Force on New Americans, agencies will work over the next few months to review existing policies and programs to ensure that they are responsible to newcomers and receiving communities. And a big part of this is really we want to make sure that agencies are recognizing certainly refugees and actually immigrants as part of their service population and recognizing them and really building programs and services around them is really a big part of looking at a strategy to make sure that agencies are integrating these populations to the fullest potential. We're really excited to see the federal work moving forward, and certainly to have a partner as Welcoming America to help us do that. We also really want to hear from you, and I think there's been a request out to many of our stakeholders in terms of any ideas or thoughts you may have about how to help immigrants and refugees in local communities. We're certainly open to hearing from them, and I know we've sent out a request to many of our stakeholders so that there is a mechanism to submit ideas in ways that we can actually formulate a strategy that really helps us look at long-term integration. If you could mute your phone a minute, that'd be great. And it's really the goal of this administration, but something that will be looking and have lasting impact as we move together as Americans and certainly as prosperous communities. So really appreciate the opportunity to be part of this. Really want to thank again Welcoming America for putting this webinar together, but also for just being a great partner and helping us really forge a very integrated role for newcomers in the U.S. So thank you.
Ken, and we're so delighted to see this opportunity emerging at the federal level for creating welcoming communities, and so appreciate all of ORR's support and leadership in this area. It's so great to have ORR as a partner in this work, and we appreciate you taking the time to share a little bit more with everyone today. Before we move on, I'm going to make another plea for everyone to please mute their phones. We've had a number of people join us since perhaps our last announcement about muting the phones. The good news is we have over 250 people on the webinar. Bad news is that's a whole lot of people to be generating background noise for our speakers, and unfortunately, WebEx, they're not automatically muting you all. So we hear everything that is happening in your offices, and I don't want that to happen. So please, including the speakers, we need all of the speakers to mute their phones as well, unless they are actually speaking. So we may have to make a few more announcements about muting phones just so that everyone can hear this great content today. So please, please with us. Thank you for your patience with the muting. It's really my pleasure now to dig into the core content of our webinar today, and we'll be joined first by Jesse Molina, who's going to be giving us an overview of fostering refugee leadership. Let me tell you just a little bit about Jessie. She's the Director of Education and Training for Welcoming America and works to grow capacity and efficacy of network and meet our network's education and training goals. She leads our organization in a national dialogue initiative, which provides structured opportunities for immigrants and non-immigrants to engage in open, honest conversation conversation. Before joining Welcoming America, she led a national initiative called Quality Education as a Constitutional Right, and has worked with the John Gardner Center for Youth and their communities at Stanford University and the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights in San Francisco. And she's a graduate of Harvard and Yale Law School. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jessie.
Thank you, Susan. I'm Jessie, and I'm really happy to be here today to talk about this very important issue. So I'm just going to provide an overview for a framework of why it's important to involve the most directly impacted people in efforts for change. So that's the fundamental message of my presentation, is that we believe that the most impacted people, the most directly involved people should lead efforts for change. And while we all do a great job at providing services for refugees, we can achieve even better results by creating space for refugee leadership. Refugees are the experts in their own needs and how to meet them. We must make room at the table for the experts. So this is really about trying to move away from a charity model of doing for other people and toward an empowerment model of helping people to not only do for themselves, but also begin to do together. So why should the most directly impacted people lead efforts for change? So the people most directly impacted, they know the issues. They have the most accurate and up-to-date information about what the problems are and how to solve them. They also have the most at stake. So while we're all very connected to refugee issues and concerns, the people who have most at stake are refugees, and in that way they'll be more committed to the long-term success of any effort. We also believe that a group working together is always more powerful in the long term than the efforts of a few leaders. So while oftentimes it seems more efficient to have one or two people go ahead and get things done together, if you can really engage a group of people to take ownership of something and really buy into it and work on the change together, that will have more long-term effect. Baker was a civil rights leader in the 50s and 60s and really throughout her life, and she had a quote here. Sorry, has this? We're trying to advance the slides here and having some technical difficulties. So Ella Baker Center, Ella Baker was a civil rights activist in the 50s and 60s, and she had a quote called, "Strong people don't need strong leaders." And so this is the idea that if we can help, that we don't necessarily need that one charismatic, educated, or intelligent leader to have everyone, that really, if leadership is the capacity to solve problems, that all of us have leadership, that any community and any organization, not leader less, but we're actually leader full, and really trying to create space for people to take on that leadership and have these strong people that don't necessarily need to be led by one or two individuals. So we can begin to envision our role as creating space for and developing leadership in others, and that the quality of a good leader is actually to create space for and develop leadership in other people. I'm going to just share Ella Baker's philosophy in a nutshell here, and this is from the Zinn Education Project. Some of her ideas include that organizers should stay in the background, and that they should develop trust in communities, people to define what they want. And so while individuals may know what they want, a group or a collective may need some support in kind of identifying what their collective interest is, and then helping guide people to achieve their goals. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about staying in the background. One way to do that is to make sure that you have facilitated meetings So having a clear facilitator with a timed agenda and having decision points, that helps give people a sense of where a meeting is going without always looking to who's leading the meeting. Making sure to rotate facilitation so that everyone has the opportunity to take charge of that meeting and guide how that meeting goes. So again, training people to facilitate meetings. Something that's helpful is creating group agreements and processes for participation that prioritize all voices. So these include the group agreements that we're all familiar with, asking people to step up and participate, step back and allow other voices to come forward, and to really use some of the processes that allow for everyone to speak. You don't just have the people who naturally would get out there and get their voices out there. So this could include having go-arounds to ensure that everyone has a chance to weigh in on something, asking people to write down ideas on an index card and turning that in for people to read, having opportunities to vote. Those are ways to include people. Another thing, not only is it important to rotate facilitation, it's also important to rotate opportunities, particularly for leadership development activities. So, you know, we often get opportunities rooted through us about, well, we need a speaker to come speak about refugees moving to this community here. So making sure that when those opportunities come up to really think about, you know, do I have to be the one to go, or can I bring somebody else with me, or can I ask somebody else to do this? What are some ways to ensure that when there's an opportunity to shape and design a program, are there other people in the group that can really step up to do that? So bottom line, we're envisioning ourselves as holding the space for others to participate. So how can you create a safe space, an open space, a space where people are really allowed to step up and participate and lead in a way that, you know, even if people make mistakes, you can still go forward.
Jess and Susan, I want to just interrupt a moment. I'm so sorry to do this, but we're still having problems with static. Folks, we need you to put yourselves on mute. We have a few people who we're hearing quite a bit from, Hayek and Greta Jimenez, Hanan and Greta Jimenez and Harold Eichner. We can hear everything.
Thank you so much for having this beginning session. There are one comment and then one question. One of the comments I have heard the most.
I'm sorry, but we're getting a lot of background noise from Harold Eichner, and we really need you to mute your phone, or we're going to ask you to get off the line if you can't do that. Either mute your phone, or if that's not working, we need you to Cisco interface. You can click the microphone icon in the upper right next name, and that will mute you. Sounds like things are actually getting much better. Again, we really apologize to everybody. We've never had this problem before with WebEx, but for some reason, no one is automatically muted when they get on. And my chat function isn't working. I can read everybody's great ideas, but I can't send anything out via chat. So again, we thank you for muting yourselves. We're sorry this has been such a rough beginning today, but thanks for bearing with us on this very important topic. And Judy, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you, everybody, for bearing with us. So the second principle is really taking some time and effort to develop trust in communities, and this is a long-term process, but here are some ways to do that. The primary one is relationship building. So trust is really all about relationships. One way to begin, lots of ways to develop relationships. Something that are helpful include extended personal check-ins at the beginnings of meetings. And so this is something that you can model yourself, but really creating some time and space for people to share personally about, you know, using an interesting question, to talk about themselves, and even if you model being vulnerable a little bit, over time that will build some unity and trust in the group. Storytelling is a really great way, sharing stories from your life, and one great tool for that is a card game called More Than One Story that will be on our website in a couple of weeks that offers, interesting questions that people can share that build connection and understanding between people. Time over food is always good, but really focusing on that relationship building aspect, you can't do it too much. Commit to honest and transparent communication. Share knowledge and information. So as service providers, a lot of information is going to come to us, and be mindful to share that information, to always bring information back to the group will also build trust. Another thing there is to commit to group decision-making. So there's lots of resources on the web about consensus decision-making and how to make collective decisions. And even though this may take more time, it also is something that can build trust and engagement with the decisions that are made. The images that you promote in public. This is on websites, media, promotional materials, etc. If you're moving away from a charity model and toward an empowerment model, make sure that the images you have aren't always about people with more privilege helping people with less privilege, but actually people working together and really doing a mutual exchange. Engage cultural traditions and values of participants by using food, music, and ritual is always helpful in building trust in community. And then final but important thing is to acknowledge and accept responsibility for mistakes. So we're all going to make mistakes. We're going to move into leadership without considering other people's voices. But when those mistakes happen, to acknowledge them and accept responsibility is always a good thing. People define what they want. Why are they coming to this meeting? Where is their collective self-interest? Help people identify and define what they want. And this is about usually a values conversation. So to help people design and facilitate a process for defining the needs, and you don't have to control the process or the outcomes yourself. Even if the outcomes that come up or the ideas are not what you think may be right, allow the group to make its own mistakes, and often we might be surprised. Guiding people to reach their goals. So use practical hands-on exercises to develop a plan for setting and reaching goals. There's lots of resources out there and activities on problem analysis, defining targets, developing strategy, communications, evaluation, and more. So really, there's a lot of group processes for doing those things. Celebrating wins, that's self-explanatory, but also celebrating losses and mistakes and things that didn't work out. Those kinds of things can still acknowledge the unity and the power of the group and build some community if you can explore what happened and how to change it next time. Smaller incremental goals that build to larger ones. This is something that's helpful when you're just beginning with the group to avoid frustration. A lot of this, can seem difficult for people when you're first starting. If you want to move to start involving the most impacted people, people often wonder, well, nobody's going to want to lead. People aren't going to want to come. How do I get them in the room? And really, I just want to emphasize that you start with who you have. So Fannie Lou Hamer, civil rights activist and sharecropper in Mississippi, and one thing that she said is, there's one thing you have got to learn about our movement. The people are better than no people. So there's going to be some people who are willing to lead, who are willing to take leadership, who are willing to take responsibility for what we're trying to create in the community. And so start with them, start where you are and with who you have, and build from there. Thank you.
Jessie, thanks for doing such a great job of giving concrete ideas to start thinking about it and really setting a table for our next couple of speakers. For those of you who may have joined a few minutes late, this is just another friendly reminder to please mute your phones because WebEx is not letting us do that. There's some kind of glitch in the system, so we need everyone to make sure they're on mute so that we can hear our wonderful speakers. Our next speaker is Helen Ho, and Helen Helen is the founding executive director of the Asian Americans Advancing Justice Atlanta, which is the first nonprofit law center dedicated to promoting the civil, social, and economic rights of Asian Americans in the South. She leads the Advancing Justice Atlanta's public policy, legal education, community organizing, and leadership development work to fit its goal of increasing the civic participation of Asian Americans in the South. Helen's a graduate of Rice University in Houston and honors graduate of Emory University School of Law. So, Helen, we look forward to hearing from you.
Well, thank you much. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, you're on.
Oh.
You are on, Helen.
Hey, well, thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this webinar. And thank you for the kind introduction. I'll just go right into, thanks for talking about advancing justice, and we are, mostly kind of a think tank policy analysis and legal education, but we mix that with leadership development and organizing, and our goal, ultimate goal and vision is to engage, educate, and empower underrepresented Asian immigrants and refugees to greater civic participation in the South. The South has experienced the fastest Asian population growth, and we have a very large Southeast Asian refugee population here in the state of Georgia. So just wanted to kind of share that as a start. Our ability to effectively mobilize Asian immigrants and refugees on a host of campaigns is in large part due to relationships within our Pan-Asian Action Network, or PAN, a really loose organic coalition of about 4 Asian ethnic, mostly volunteer-based organizations in Georgia. And, this definitely, to piggyback on Jesse's presentation, came about through a process of relationship building and partnership over the years. So I have to speak about, how we work with the refugee communities, and I wanted to just lift up really a specific example of our work with the Myanmar Buddhist Association, a nonprofit group that runs the only Burmese Buddhist temple in our state. Before they started their group, all Buddhist Burmese had to drive many, many hours into South Carolina. So, this is an example of one of our grassroots partners in our Pan-Asian Action Network. But I think kind of how we work with them is probably, illuminative of how we, try to empower our grassroots leaders, and they in turn educate us. So the first visit I made to the Myanmar Buddhist Association was in 2010. I had learned about them through my census work. I went to one of their, board meetings at their small little log cabin Buddhist temple out in Lithonia, Georgia. And really didn't come with a huge agenda on my plate. It was really just to talk with them. And I was speaking with their board members and their youth, wanted to learn what issues they were facing, what needs that they had. I think at the end I did share a little bit about hope for immigration reform, some state-based anti-immigrant laws we thought might be coming down the pipe. And it was just really a conversational exchange about what we're seeing in their local community and what we were kind of, connecting with.
I would say an overlooked, understaffed.
At state or national level. I think someone is not muted. Basically, we continue to make visits. The picture on the left is their annual water festival. To their right was a special, Myanmar Buddhist Association celebration. They make the best food ever. We just continued to make visits. We felt like, I felt like I was becoming part of the family, would just always invite me to whatever event or meeting. Whenever I could, I would touch base. It really led to both the members of the Myanmar Buddhist Association and other Burmese in town to call me, and knowing our group is that legal group. And, I would get calls, and our group would get calls for advice on a variety of different topics. I mean, sometimes we could help times maybe we would refer, many times it was really in our wheelhouse. But I see as an important touch in community, a way to continue building relationship and trust and care. And, from the Burmese community, it's to the Burmese, introducing me to other groups from Burma, including the Chin and Karen refugee groups. And that led to similar build-ups with them meeting with key elders or members of their churches, typically in relationship, and really serving as a trusted resource, and also being there in a position of learning. And this is just one of festivals that I got to attend. Now move forward a year and a half later, in spring of 2012, Georgia, our copycat anti-immigrant bill was moving through our legislature. And typically, immigrant-led protests in our state, as well as I'm sure other parts of our region, it's all Latino. And the speaker list is almost all Latino. And so, when I heard what was going on, I was so moved. The monk that the temple monk, and he agreed to lead, to be a part of the speakers, and he had that protest with the prayer. I don't know how many people in the audience understood what he was praying, but it was very, very moving. That was probably the first time I worked with on a particular campaign or agenda that was really, connected to one of our program priorities. So that's like a year and a half later. Now, fast forward to 2014, we are actively in partnership not only with the Myanmar Buddhist Association, but with several other Burmese and Myanmar groups, doing a lot of voter registration and engagement, involved in leadership development, connecting them with other Asian ethnic organizations. Just this year, let me go to this. We provided many grants, technical assistance, and training for 11 different groups for our midterm election voter registration and engagement work. And you can see 3 of the 11 groups are really of Burmese, the Sahau Nam Phong, the American Chin, and the Atlanta Chin Baptist Church, the American Chin, and the Sahau Nam Phong. And I think none of the groups are refugee-based. So it's just been such a gift to have this partnership grow. But our partnership with them is not just about building our volunteer base and mobilizing our base. Working with the refugee population has provided unbelievable insights in what kind of messaging and communications work, as well as what type of activities, programs will work best. Just a recent example, we decided to call our election campaign this year, This American Vote. And that slogan and communications campaign came about because of kind of a meme thing we were doing earlier in the year called We All Matter. And so many of our Southeastern refugee leaders wrote their story. And you realize, wow, for a lot of Southeast refugee leaders, being American and being patriotic, there's nothing cheesy or, good about it. It's so deeply personally tied to their struggles, to almost losing life, for many of them fighting on the side of freedom in their countries in Laos and elsewhere. And so, to be American, to be able to claim that and to participate is a point of pride. And so it was really, our whole campaign message really came about and was inspired by the stories and the work and the spirit of our Southeast Asian refugee group. groups. Let me give an example. You know, as our work and partnership in different refugee communities began to spread, people, other refugee groups, other, you know, Southeast Asian refugee leaders would just join us, would come and find us. And a great example is with our nonpartisan candidate training. Last 2 years, we had a Vietnamese woman refugee win and be elected for the first time ever in the state of Georgia. She is a city councilwoman in the city of Riverdale. And then we have Jun Shvang Lim, a Cambodian refugee who's the first ever Asian American elected to Superior Court, state of Georgia. Both of them were involved in our grassroots candidate campaign training, and really I think it was just through word of mouth they heard of this training. And you know, one of the best things, again, for us, we don't see partners as clients at all, and we're a legal group. They really are our partners. First time in 15 years, the main Georgia paper, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, wrote a front-page piece about Asian Americans, and it was focused on Asian Americans and civic engagement and us becoming political agents and a force in the South. We read that story, and they ran with it. It was so amazing. We were also featured in a PBS documentary, Politics of the New South, America by the Numbers, Maria Hinojosa's documentary series about our work in Clarkston, the number of refugees running that city. It's just, you know, my perspective, you know, to me, our refugee partners really are leaders, and it's just amazing over the years to see them also be recognized in that way in, you know, broader communications and media. So I'll through these last things really quick, but you know, I think I guess one thing just to think about whether you're a group like ours or a social service provider. You think about how you work with refugees. I mean, how you work with them depends on how you view the relationship. You know, I would challenge you, you know, are you thinking of yourself as a teacher, provider, or representative? Or are you seeing yourself more in the position of student, partner, ally, and advocate? You know, you view the refugee in your relationship, then the client, receiver, or change your perspective to them as a teacher, partner, and empowered. Also, you know, always about the relationship, you know, you have to be, it is work, so it's the goal. But you know, I think, you know, just I find, you know, am I thinking about short-term transactional work, or really trying to build a relationship, which is really part of what we do, is really to empower leaders from the roots up. Also, we learned, like I said, it's the insights that our community leaders give that are so essential to the success of our work. I mean, have you asked what motivates and drives their community? I'm amazed at how many meetings I go to where the topic is how do we help refugees in our state, and there's not a single foreign-born immigrant or refugee actually at the table discussing it. So ask yourself before you start a program or design a new program, have you asked bottom-up development? They be at the table when decisions are made, when programs are developed, and I think it's really important to identify the right spokesperson or ambassador. You're piggybacking on Jesse. If you are the organizer, maybe taking the back within that community carries more respect and credibility, and also that built-in reciprocity of respect need there. I think this is universal. Tap into shared values and beliefs, how to see ourselves. This one thing bugs the heck out of me. A lot of times, you know, Asian Americans and Asian refugees and immigrants tend not to be at the table, and people assume it's apathy. I wouldn't assume it's apathy. Oftentimes there are barriers that honestly even I don't necessarily think about, but try to think, you know, there's something else other than this knee-jerk, oh, they don't care, they want to engage. I think, you know, get to the relationship building point, I think feeling always behavior more than reason, and to not get into that. Dog lovers, so of course I love this picture. You know, just a successful working relationship. This is just universal. You know, trust and respect, shared values, shared goals. You know, caring over time. But you know, in a work context, you know, it's tough. So it's a massive investment. You know, building a transformational, empowered relationship, it's rarely linear. It takes a lot of time, as my story told. It takes a lot of humility, being mindful of your own privilege and race and class dynamics that come into play. It's a lot of flexibility and being willing to do non-work-related stuff. And you have to really want it. And so it doesn't always result in whatever outcome you may be seeking. Most of all, for the service providers and other people who are on the call, you need a supportive supervisor or supportive organization that buys into this philosophy of empowerment. And that's pretty much it. So I hope I didn't go too long.
That was great, Ellen. Thank you so much. Your example is so inspiring, and I think you have so many great nuggets in there that we can all learn from, you know, beginning from the beginning and how we view ourselves in relationship to refugees in our communities. So thank you so much. I'm sure many of you have questions, Helen, and we'll be moving into questions in just a little bit. I will let you guys know that we are recording this webinar. For worse, we'll be able to live through all of the challenge at the beginning. We were trying to get everybody on mute. So you will be able to listen to this webinar again. We'll also have PowerPoint slides available. We will be emailing those out to all of you once they're available in the next week or so. They will also live on our Welcoming Refugees website. So don't feel like you have to take, you know, copious notes right now. We will get materials up to you soon. But not least, I'd like to move on to our final speaker, Ruth Lana, who arrived in Providence, Rhode Island 6 years ago with her husband and her 2 children. Ruth was resettled by Dorcas International Institute of Rhode Island, which was then at the time International Institute of Rhode Island. She and her family are originally from Burma, and Ruth is a proven leader since her arrival in Providence. She assists refugees from Burma by helping them with cultural orientation, providing interpreting services, and transporting them to medical appointments. Ruth is the newly formed Refugee Women's Leadership Group that includes refugee women who are leaders in their communities who want to collaborate to assist incoming refugees and to connect with community groups about resources available to refugees. She is employed by Powell Interpreting Services and is a small business owner of a clothing boutique. So Ruth, welcome. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, my name is Ruth Chwani. I arrived to U.S. United States December 2009 with my husband and 2 children. Since then I arrived, I've been very active in my Burmese community. I was an interpreter helping refugees with their appointment at their difficulty. At the same time, I attend different seminars, information, listen in order to stay informed. So, yeah, as a community, as a leader, what I do is I advocate them, take them to DHS office and state to get the driving license, medical insurance. It's very hard to get. It takes long. Everyone knows it, but you know, if I don't help them, no one gonna get their state ID or medical card, so I have to take my time to help them. But in the hospital, so I do interpret for them, and they don't know how to get hospital. I have to go to the house and bring them and give them a ride to hospital and take them to pharmacy. After that, take them to home. Need to do everything, guide them. They really need assistance from our Burmese refugee. And I do basic needs assistance. Yeah, they have a caseworker, but caseworkers are busy. They have to take care of a lot of refugee families, so I have to do beyond them because I know my Burmese community, my culture, what they need assistance. So even in the midnight, if they call me, I have to go to their house and what they need. And if I cannot do, I have to call the caseworker or 911, everything what they need. I have to do it. Culture usually when they arrive, I give them a cultural orientation. This is very important for especially for our country, but from Burma, because we are educated. We never see things like this, so we don't know anything. So it takes a long time to learn, to adopt the culture and to adopt everything about, because life is totally changed. So they have to study, they have to know. But sometimes the caseworker and people think that, oh, this is easy, they will know it. But it's not, They have to keep trying and learning. It is very hard to, even the alphabet is different. They don't know. They have to learn it from the alphabet. All the sign is different. And some people, for example, they will say, oh, go to bus stop and take bus number 11. You can go to there. You will get to the hospital. But that one, where they cannot read the bus sign, everything, we have to learn. That cultural orientation is very important for us. And home visit, arrival, we have to do home visit. Yeah, the caseworker is busy, like I say, so I have to go there. I know what they need and listen what they need and talk to the caseworker or from the office, and go them visit again what they need, shopping or go to sick visit, kind of stuff. We have to do everything. Community engagement, so some people from Burma, some are Christian, some are Buddhist. So my job is, if they're Christian, then fine for them. It's just what denomination, what they want to go, Baptist or Methodist, kind of Roman Catholic. I have to talk to, you can go this, I have to engage with a church member, and even the Buddhist member also. I have to go to. They don't have a Buddhist temple, but I used to take them to Hmong Buddhist temple, talk with them, and they become like a friend, and they can assist them. So that's my job. For refugee leader, yeah, it's very important. Yes, since I arrived in 2009, I started doing this one because I see my people really need assistance. So just helping them from 2009 to the present, 2015 till now. See it like I am not get some kind of stipend. Sometimes I have to take care of my kid, my family. So sometimes my husband say, oh, you are with us or you are going to do it. It's kind of hard time, it used to come out. And so so they should give from the agency also a leadership course or interpreting training kind of stuff. If they can do it, then that will be very good. And so the community partner will strong. And so we can help each other more, and some people are more willing to do because they have to take care of their family. If yes, but not few friends. So some people say, oh, we don't get paid, just they don't want to do. But if we can get like a stipend, so a lot of people, not only my community, other community, refugee community, will do together, work together, and that's the community will be very strong. Yes, 2004, a big yes, yes. End of 2004 December, we started doing a women leadership group, refugee women leadership group, and that one is from like a group that's make from refugee women from like Bhutan, Burma, Colombia, the Republic of Congo, Eritrea, and Iraq. And we started doing, but no one, we don't have a skill, but we just step by step we working on that. And each group, or they have their own women groups, and so we can communicate with them, and we can learn each other our skill, and we can share what we need and supporting each other. This our goal. Our goal of that women group is like to educate women and to take care of their family. Yeah. My vision. Yeah. Yes. And I
Ruth, I'm hearing you. Still there? Ruth, are
I'm hearing you, but I can't hear Ruth.
okay? I have to move ahead because we're about out of time, and for some reason we can't hear Ruth unless you get on real quickly. Ruth, can you hear us? Ruth. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and move ahead. Hannah, maybe you could. Ruth, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you now.
We lost your sound. I don't know why. We have maybe just a minute. If you could wrap up real quickly, so we have time for questions and answers. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Ruth, I think we're having a problem with Ruth's sound.
Can you hear now?
Okay, I hear you. Let's try one more time. Ruth? I think we're going to have to move ahead. Hannah, maybe you can move the slides on me so I can finish up and take a few questions. In the meantime, folks, if you would, please, if you have any questions for the presenters, please check them in to the Q&A box, and I will help moderate our discussion. So take a moment. If you have any questions, we also have Ken on the line, so Ken is available if there are questions for Ken. We have Helen on the line. We have Jessie on the line. I think Ruth is trying to call back in. So can ask her some questions once she's able to get back in. But, what are you struggling with? You've heard from some great experts today who've given some really practical advice and some good ideas. But we're still struggling with. What do you think is really challenging? throw out the first question while everybody thinks and writes in their questions. Maybe this is a question for Helen. Helen, there's so much interest, I think, around among people who work with refugees to think about ways to foster collaboration across ethnic lines. But we know that there are a lot of divisions sometimes between people, even within the same country, who may, come from a different ethnicity within one country. And I guess Burma would be a great example of that. If you found to be really successful, what sort of any key ingredients for trying to get people to build trust and want to work together across different ethnic lines?
That's a really tough one because when you do work, pretty actively in multiple, different ethnic populations, you realize divisions in every single group, different groups, and sometimes fights, whether it's political or personality or what have you. So it is very true. It's true. It's kind of a universal truth. I don't really know. I mean, to be perfectly frank, I think the fact that our organization presents itself as really standing to part with multiple Asian organizations, and I think that amongst factioned off organizations, we will reach out to all of them, and to the previous speaker's point, we have to provide mini grants when we can. I mean, it's even close to the value that we get from these partnerships, but we do want to really gift our nonprofit partners for the partnerships that they provide to us. And so, when we call a convening, the groups will come. At least, mostly in our experience, and I am aware that sometimes there are options, but they will come together for our coalition meetings, if that makes sense. And I sometimes do get called in, sometimes actually to mediate or, take sides. I tried to mediate before. That's no answer. I really don't have an answer. I think it's very hard, and I try really to listen and create space and make sure that I'm welcoming all groups, at least to the efforts that we make.
I don't think there are any easy answers to that. And if folks on the line have seen some promising strategies that have worked to bring people together across ethnic differences, please feel free to chat those in and we can share them out. We had another question come in around the role of youth and the opportunity to involve refugee youth in leadership and in engagement. And I wonder if any of our speakers would like to comment on the role of youth and how to go about doing that.
Well, I'm sure if Ruth is on the line, she may have more experience. I'll just share that I think it's absolutely a wonderful way to engage communities by engaging the young people. Locally here, we have a community center, the Clarkson Community Center, that has a roving listener program that's working with both receiving community and refugee young people to engage them in learning more about and serving their community. And so I think it's definitely a good idea, and you can overcome some of the issues that are working against engaging older people, such as job and family and all of those kinds of current concerns. Young people want to get together. They want to get to know each other. They want to work with each other. And there's often a need to connections across ethnic differences and other kinds of differences, and that happens a lot more quickly with young people. So I think it's a fantastic approach to engaging refugee communities.
Can you hear us? Does not allow the speaker to put themselves on mute, because especially Leroy, we're getting a little feedback from you, so we need you to please mute yourself. We're going to take just a couple more questions because we're just about out of time. How have you thought about choosing who to invite your coalition meetings, and how does it seem delicate to use the term community leaders and it not be perceived that your organization feels someone is a leader and someone else is not? Get a feel around some of those. That's something you can speak to?
Okay, I'm reading the question now. It's interesting. What's the terminology? What do you use? Whether it's our youth or our elders or the people in between, whether they serve in an official officer position for their group or not, we actually refer to all of our, individual volunteer members and community groups as community leaders. I don't know. That's just, it's maybe my own, Asian, heritage to always, try and think of a respectful terminology, but, I call, those that are much younger than me, community leaders as well. I've never really, I haven't ever received any push from using that term, and then I like it too because it kind of, further cements that we're all part of one community. And we also work beyond Asian refugee populations. We also work with Somalis and Caribbean immigrant groups. So, we just say community leader for the blanket.
I think an inclusive philosophy around engagement and letting everyone, who really wants to engage with you, opportunity to do so, and call them all leaders in their own way. Sounds like a positive way to go. We did a comment come in about, and I have Ken on the line, about ORR and, finding ways for incentives to incentivize refugee participation. And I just wanted to, especially since we don't want to put Ken on the spot, but since we have you here, that, this refugee leaders in these efforts is so effective, and, if it's possible to have some funding to provide incentives around that, it might be really helpful. And Ken, I don't know if you want to comment on that. I still have you on mute, but if you are still with us, we did want to call that out.
Can you?
I can hear you.
Good. I worked the mute button. Sure, be happy to comment, Susan. A lot of times, certainly funding certainly does become an issue and often a challenge. And I think, we do have a program that's called our Ethnic Community Services, which really helps to build community organizations, certainly refugee-based community organizations. Often, many times are newly arriving refugees looking to build a community organization within communities to serve newly arriving refugees. I think certainly our funding is limited in many ways, and we can't have probably support those in every community, but there's a resource that it's available, and I think we've been really trying to encourage those within communities to partner and look at ways of sort of collaborating and working together to possibly start initiatives or probably service
provision through some of that funding is kind of initial seed funding. I think over the past couple of years we've done a lot to really look to our other sort of mainstream partners, certainly within ACF and HHS, to look at other ways of making sure that their resources also are focused on refugees within the community and ways to partnership through them. So I know often, that certainly the primary source always kind of look to ORR, but I really want to encourage everyone to look much more broadly than that. I'm hoping our funding will certainly always be a resource, but I think there are a lot of other resources we have to just kind of keep building those partnerships and collaborations to really help support other opportunities. And one of those, I know many times the community action organizations within communities, we've done a lot with our partner, the Office of Community Services, to really make sure that through their networks and certainly see Community Services has a pretty substantial funding through their community service block grants, and I think it's really important within communities to be part of their strategic planning. They are required to have planning boards within every community, and to be part of those community planning boards really helps those communities recognize the refugee or immigrant populations within them and hopefully design service components around them. So I, really always looking at sort of every avenue I think can provide new opportunities, and much of that is about really building collaborations to help do that.
And Ken likes me that the new AmeriCorps program, Refugee Corps, might be another opportunity.
Well, thank you for mentioning it. And that is, so ORR is very excited about a new partnership and collaboration that we've been working with the Corporation for Community Service, CNCS, who actually provide services through their AmeriCorps program. And so we're looking at forming an AmeriCorps refugee program, which actually helps support members in many communities throughout the country as part of one of our grant programs. And refugees will hopefully be, actually the members will hopefully be refugees, and much of their role will be about fostering volunteerism, mentoring, and really looking at other ways to build resources and capacity for refugees and refugees certainly within those communities. So we hope to have that move forward in the later part of this year, but it's a very exciting direction for the program as well. So thanks, Susan. Yeah, no, thank you for mentioning that.
Now that would be a great resource to folks on the phone, and we will be, as we get information on it too, we'll be happy to blast that out to you so we can really make the most of that.
Great. We really hope this is, we're putting this forward as a pilot, but we really hope it's a model we can really promote in the years to come as well.
Great. Well, thank you, Lynn. We're sorry we ran short of time today, but we do have contact information for Helen and for Ruth. If you have questions that you were not able to have answered today, please feel free to reach out to either one of them on their email addresses that are here. Jessie Molina at Welcoming America is also available at Jessie@welcomingamerica.org, and Hannah and I as well. So please, we're sorry we didn't have enough time to get questions asked, but hopefully you'll have an opportunity to reach out with any lingering thoughts that you have.
Can I mention one thing? This is Ken.
Oh, sure. Go ahead, Ken.
Just to mention, so I mentioned that the White House Task Force is actually looking for direction or certainly suggestions about this integration strategy. So if you would like to submit something, I just wanted to, it's newamericans@who.eop.gov, and it'd be great to have you think about that and submit something as part of the initiative.
Great. Please, people, please get it out there. Why don't you share the last couple announcements with everyone, and we'll wrap up.
So we have an exciting contest coming up. The Welcome Refugees Communication Contest will be announcing application details in early February. is going to be a national communications contest for refugee service providers and community collaborators. We're looking for people to submit great examples of positive communications about refugees. And if you're one of the 3 prize winners, you would receive an all-expenses-paid trip to the 2015 National Immigrant Integration Conference. Also be featured on a webinar and in a toolkit. So we're so excited to see what you have to submit to us. So stay tuned for those details coming up in the next week or so. I'll also be hosting a deeper dialogue on this topic, refugee leadership, on Thursday, February 5th at 12:00 p.m. Eastern. To join, if you had some questions or some things that you wanted to talk through in like a smaller forum, you can join us by sending an email to hannah@welcomingamerica.org with name, organization, location, and what you would most like to discuss during the call. And I wanted to thank all of you for bearing with us with our technical difficulties today. I know it was challenging at times, but glad you stayed on the line. Thank you.
Hannah, and thanks to everyone. Again, we'll look forward to getting those details out to you within the next couple of weeks on the Welcoming Refugees Communications Contest, so we can highlight some of the great work in the field. And again, if you're able to join us for a deeper dialogue around refugee leadership, please do let Hannah know so she can send you the information on that. Again, my deep thanks to Ken and Helen and Ruth and Jesse for being our speakers today, and to each and every one of you for joining us for this conversation. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.